And so they end up lacking a lot of connection because they just feel so significant. And I often wonder, or and maybe you have as well, when you see these very affluent, famous actors and people that are well known that have committed suicide, you're thinking, what's going on? I don't know the full story, but I could see why that might be a factor. That you could be absolutely alone in a crowded festival with loving people everywhere, but you're not feeling it. You're feeling so disconnected from that. So those two needs, again, are in opposition to one another. So you need significance, but you also need connection, loving connection. And one of the things I learned too in the male-female relationships that I was in, I was making these girls feel so adored that they ended up feeling like they couldn't meet my expectations because I wanted to treat them like a queen. And at those ages, at those 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever those ages were, some of them didn't have that. They had their own insecurities, and the fact that I was being so nice to them really scared them. No, you're too nice a guy for me. I don't deserve this. And I remember telling one girl, you're just perfect. I am not perfect. She got really pissed off. I thought, what's that all about? So, the point is, she wasn't feeling her own need for significance and connection. So that's one of those areas that we have to develop in ourselves as part of living our best versions every day. And I'll tell you what, I used to think, why don't I say, because I love the acronym LOVE. And that's where I kind of try to make that work in there. But some people say, why don't you say live my best version every day? Live your best version every day. And it wasn't, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, the penny finally dropped and I thought, it really is our. When an individual is actually being their best version, they're showing up as their best self, they're serving their community, they're serving their relationships. So it really is about our. We're not in this alone. Each and every one of us has a heart and a soul that is here for a duration and a purpose. Relationship is one of those most beautiful things that we have as humans to experience, as I shared before, magnifying this experience. I've been at the top of the Eiffel Tower all by myself. Back in the days before you could use a camera for a selfie, I had to put a timer on it and run back over here. And I thought, this really sucks. I've got no one to share this with. Or you just ate something that you really like. Oh, taste this. No, nobody to share it with. And as I've learned with a child, you get challenged quite a bit. I learned so much. One of the things that I learned that I'll share with you, and I'll try to do my best to not get emotional about it. Has everybody heard of the 4 agreements? Manuel Ruiz? Yep. That is something I incorporate in the coaching as well, and I probably won't touch on it too much today. But I thought, I'm going to give my little girl this awareness of the 4 agreements. Because I thought, what a great tool to give a child right from the beginning. That 0 to 6 is so important for that very fertile brain, that very fertile mind, that very receptive. They're just like little sponges. They're wonderful observers. They see everything. Terrible interpreters. They'll end up making something mean something. And you may know, as an adult in that perspective, you go, that's not what that meant at all. If daddy comes in, he's grumpy, suddenly, child's going to feel like, oh, daddy doesn't love me anymore. Or what, something to that extreme. Dad just had a bad day. But if that happens on a repeated basis, that little person ends up making that mean something. So anyhow, I thought, well, I'm going to teach these 4 agreements right up front. And so what we did when she'd go to school, I said, have a great day, and I do the little 4 fingers, and they said, with love. We did a little fist pump with love. So we do your 4 agreements with love. And one day, as she was hopping out of the car, I said, I love you. And she said, I love you too. And she's getting ready to bolt out. I said, why do you love me? Why do you love me? Now, this may be a question you even ask in your own relationships. Why do you love me? What do you think you're looking for at that point when you ask that question? One of the needs. What do you think you're trying to fill? Validation, which is otherwise known as what? You get some certainty, you get some connection, you get, mostly certainty and connection, isn't it? That you're getting validation, that's what it is, right? And those are the four human needs. Certainty and connection you're getting when you say, why does someone love me? You're needing to know and feel why you're significant, why you're worthy of another person's love. And without a hesitation, she just says, I choose to. And was gone. I sat there and cried. I thought, there's some wisdom. Here I am trying to read about all these things and kind of get all this stuff figured out. And right there it already was. I choose to. What a beautiful place to come from in a relationship. I choose to love. I choose to commit 100%. You need to choose yourself first because you cannot give what you do not have. Does that make sense? If you don't have your cup full of self-love, how can you really hold the space to share that love with another? Is this making sense? And this is kind of, I guess it's not really that deep, but it's sometimes those things we don't think about too often. We get a lot of ideas from Disney about what relationships should be. And you guys, I don't know if there's anybody old enough to remember Harlequin, is that romance novels? Yeah, and 50 Shades of Grey? No. But the point is, there's a lot of ideas about what relationship is and how it serves. Now, I'll give you the fifth human need that we have is growth. Yes? You got a question? Nope. Okay. Fifth human need we have is growth. So, quite often a relationship is going to promote growth of some sort. Going to events like this and workshops is going to promote growth. This is a need that we have as human beings. If we're not growing, we're dying. We need that stimulation. We need that feeling. This is all feeling, by the way. This is how we relate to our lives, is through our feelings. And we know that's a biochemical process, but it is feelings. And that's how we feel and or know. It's how we feel about something. You can be rich, you can be famous, you can have all these things, but if you're not feeling it, it's empty. Because success without fulfillment isn't really worth the heaven that much. Because you're not feeling it. And if you think through any means that we have in our society, you got to have X amount of dollars, you got to have this kind of house, you got to have this kind of car, you got to have these kind of clothes, you got to have those brands. And if you think all of that, and all that is usually trying to fill what need do you think? Could be a couple. Could be certainty, could be significance. Acceptance, okay. Some part of that acceptance is going to be one of those human needs, of connection. Acceptance is connection. Okay? But if it's not authentic, it's going to break down at some point. Because if you're not feeling it, you're going to have the breakdown and you're going to think, this is not working for me, this sucks. And quite often, we want to blame someone. We want to blame someone or something, a system, a someone, a person, for us not feeling that one of these human needs is being met. This is where it comes back to that personal accountability, understanding that you individually are responsible for meeting your own human needs. The last one is contribution. You can have all this stuff, and we have a need to contribute. And then part of that contribution is, if we have the attachment that you have to accept that contribution, not everybody's going to want what you have to contribute. And if you end up taking that personally, that goes back to the 4 agreements, you end up taking that personally, then you're going to feel hurt. You're going to feel unacceptable because what you're contributing is not being accepted. But as far as the 6 human needs go, we are subconsciously trying to fill all those needs. But the first 4 are the ones that most of us tend to, for lack of a better word, I'll say struggle with on a regular basis to keep in balance. We're going to have ebbs and flows. As you know, with any relationship or any situation, there's going to be ebbs and flows in our needs being met, how we feel on any given day, the food that we eat, the sleep that we didn't get, our routines, our practices, those type of things. So you're going to have ebbs and flows. You're not always going to be at the top. But if every day you can show up as your best version, you're well on your way of getting back in alignment. I'll go ahead and share the 4 agreements just real quickly. The first one, so who already knows the?
Be impeccable with your word.
Be impeccable with your word. Meaning, think before you speak. Have you ever heard that one? So no lies, no gossips, because quite often we're trying to fill a need when we spit this stuff out. And I remember my little girl had, and her girl guides, she had this thing said, think before you speak. Another acronym. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it didn't meet one of those 5 criteria, then it's better to think twice and say nothing. These are just agreements that you have to, you choose to make. But that will, and that's just in being impeccable with your word, that's going to help you to be a more authentic person. Because quite often, if somebody starts gossiping about someone else, you want to jump in there on it. You want to feel significant. You realize, I'm trying to feel the need of significance right now, or connection. Everybody else is doing it. So on a daily basis, just have a think about the action that you're taking. Because we're motivated by those 2 things, the need for avoiding pain, which could be not being accepted, any other, number of ideas of what pain might be to you, and the other is pleasure. Okay? So on a daily basis, our actions, our behaviors are going from that. And the next 2 are fear and love. Are you acting out of fear, or are you acting out of love? When you start putting these things to yourself on a daily basis, you can be more authentic. But you have to realize that about yourself. Is that the action I'm taking right now, am I coming from a place of fear, or am I coming from a place of love? And then I like to use the acronym for love, living our best version every day. So, and do you remember what the second?
Don't make assumptions.
Don't make assumptions. In that, you can't guess, or it doesn't serve you to make an assumption that someone just did something to hurt you. Maybe they did, but to make the assumption that that was their intent is going to bring more harm to you. It's going to bring more hurt to you. Or assuming that someone is right, someone is wrong. Assumptions. Everybody kind of knows what assumptions are, right? So part of what your thought process gets to be is, they've done something. That's it there. If you need to inquire, ask, what did you mean by that? So often, relationships struggle because someone made the assumption of what the other person's behavior was about. And they make it a whole other story. It's hard to have an authentic relationship when you're constantly having to process by way of making assumption. And making this, they did this because. So just be mindful of that. What else could this mean? Quite often, we bring our past relationships to our present relationship. In my past relationship, she did this, she said that, whatever, he did this, he did that. That's all part of your experience now. Now think right after me, there's going to be a Ho'oponopono. It's all about forgiveness, understanding the power of forgiveness. It's not so much for the other person as it is for you. But that's part of being authentic, because if you're carrying that stuff with you, you're not going to be able to show up as your best version, because you're bringing a lot of hurt into this new relationship. So when you're aware that you're making assumptions, you can always ask yourself, what else could this mean? Get clarification. What did you mean by that? Why did you say that? Why did you do that? Ask, get clarity. Come from a place of curiosity and love. Give that person a chance to explain where they're coming from. And then hopefully that person will have had some sort of experience as well where they say, well, was I coming from a place of fear? Was I coming from a place of love? Was I acting to avoid pain? Or was I trying to get pleasure? You know? So these are little tools that you get to use on a daily basis to help you have authentic relationship. All right? And do you remember what the third?
Don't take things personally.
Don't take things personally. You never know what someone else is thinking or going through. And if you take it personally, then you're going to spend a lot of time, that little 5% part of your brain that you have, you're going to spend a lot of time making up a story or a narrative and sitting there and fleshing that out and just sitting over and over and over. And more times than not, it's going to exhaust you. And you're going to associate that pain that you've taken personally, you're going to associate that pain to that person, to that relationship, to that situation. And if you do this on a regular basis, now every time you see that person, you just have this feeling of, ugh. Because you took it personally right from the very beginning on several occasions, you've made it mean something. And so don't take anything personally. So that was the third one. And do you remember the fourth one?
I've been trying to think.
That's okay.
Always do your best.
Always do your best. That's it. Always do your best. On any given day, your best is going to ebb and flow. But if you're giving it your best, and only you know what your best is. Since my daughter's here, she come in to me a few weeks ago, maybe months ago, whatever, and she says, Dad, she says, how would you flunk my math test? If I fail, if I don't do very good on it? I said, well, are you doing your best? She just turned around and walked away. Because at the end of the day, only we know what our best is. Somebody else can say, well, that wasn't your best. But on that given moment, only you know. So all these principles that we're sharing for others in those 4 agreements, we need to apply to ourselves. Self-talk. So you go right back to being impeccable with your word. I was coaching a client the other week, and she kept saying, oh, I'm just so stupid. I'm just so stupid. I'm just so stupid. And she said that I didn't say much on the first couple times. But for about 5 or 6, I said, can we just back it up and let's find out where this is coming from. We call it our TV. Watch your TV, your transformational vocabulary. So when you're not being impeccable with your word, that applies to you as well. And if you sit there and you give yourself a lot of the self-talk, I'm so stupid, or I'm such an idiot, any of that kind of self-talk, it's still planting a seed. And you're going to, you've heard the expression, energy, attention goes or intention goes where energy flows. Energy flows where intention goes. So be mindful of these things that you're saying, these seeds that you're planting, because if you're sitting there reinforcing that, you're not going to be able to show up as your best self. You're going to step into a relationship not as your best self, and then you're going to end up having this tumultuous situation just because of that thought process. And I love the fact that I call it a TV, because you can change the channel. And you can say, all right, I'm going to give myself a different thought. I'm going to reframe this. And I love the one that they had for the kids, fail. So many people are afraid of failure. Why do you think that is? School. School is one of those places that really teach us that failing is not a good thing, unacceptable. Any other reasons why people are afraid?
Loss of parental approval.
Loss of parental approval. Okay, we're back to connection, right? We losing our connection. We're not good enough. I love the idea that, again, I don't know why, it's just the geek in me that likes acronyms. First attempt in learning, right? I love that little thing. So, if we can bear that in mind, that if we do something and it flops, If we're doing our best version, we're giving it our best shot, and it still fails, that's okay. We learned one more way not to do it that way. Or we want to learn one more way of not how to not process that information and turn it into that, because that didn't work. And of course, we all know the definition of insanity. I can't remember who gave it to us, but doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I only found out the other day, but that doesn't apply in the gym, does it? You know, every day, I want to see these muscles grow. But for most part in life, you know, you keep going through these things, these patterns, and they say, well, why doesn't she love me more? Why doesn't she acknowledge me? Why doesn't he do this? Why did, you know, what, has there been a change? Are you showing up in a way that is your best example, your best version? How are you? What are you doing to meet those needs? All right? So that was the 4 agreements really quite quickly, but they really do help with understanding how to be more authentic with yourself, your self-talk, as well as with others. And that first relationship is with yourself. So we covered that. We covered the 6 human needs. Let's just see if there's anything else here on my notes that... Yeah. So the next thing I'll ask you then is, where do you want to be? You got to understand, that's part of the clarity sessions that we do, or that I do, is to give you an idea of where do you want to be in a relationship? What kind of relationship do you want? Because chances are at this point in your life, you will have expectations. You will have your own set of rules or standards about what you think is necessary in the relationship that you want to be in. You have to communicate those things. One of the best ways is by example. Be that. You know, if you want something, whatever it is you want in your relationship, be that. Show that. Exemplify that. And if they still don't get that, then you have to realize, okay, well, do they want to? Part of a relationship, it's almost like a selection process. And during the dating phases, these are the times when you get to find out, well, are we on similar paths? You don't want to be the same, because then you're going to get bored with that relationship. But you don't want to be so different that you're constantly creating friction. You're constantly you're not enjoying each other's company anymore. So during the dating process, this stuff gets communicated. It's like, can this person be in my life in a way that I enjoy, that works for me? For example, if you're a person that loves to get in the mosh pit and rave, and your partner's like, no, I'm agoraphobic, don't put me in a crowded situation. I just don't like being around that many people. If that mosh pit is so important to you, and you need somebody in there with you, and that's really going to be the deal breaker, then you might want to share that right up front. You know what, I don't think this is going to work. If they want to know why, you can say why. By all means, be authentic about it. Be honest about it. And that was just a lame example, but there's going to be more complicated. As a matter of fact, I'll just throw it out there to you guys. What is a deal breaker for you guys? Give me what's a deal breaker for a relationship? If you're in a relationship with somebody and they have a particular behavior, they have something that they do that you say, nah, that's it for me. What is it?
Quick to anger.
Quick to anger. So if somebody's quick to anger, that is a deal breaker for you. And have you ever explored why that bothers you so much?
I think it's like a personal safety thing.
Personal safety thing. All right. See, these are things you have to understand about yourself, and that's being authentic. Okay, this triggers me. And if it's something that you know that's a deal breaker for you, no, that's okay. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that person. Doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. You're being authentic about and there's boundaries. Boundaries are so important that you understand about yourself. If you want to working on your own triggers, that's your prerogative, and you want to be your best version, that's your choice. That's a beautiful word again, choice. Anybody, any other deal breakers? Yes, ma'am.
Not being listened to.
Not being listened to. If somebody's not listening to you, that's a deal breaker. You know, how many times can that happen before you say, okay, this is not working for me? That's yours, and you know that. Does the person that you're dating and or in relationship with, do they know that?
They're about to.
They're about to. Okay. Okay. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's being authentic about it. And you might give them a chance to, you know, they might say, oh, I didn't realize I didn't. You know, here's what you have to remember is people are so busy trying to fill their own needs. So just be aware of that. That's where compassion comes in. You know, we realize, okay, well, I know about all these needs, but does my significant other know about these needs? Maybe I can do something that will help them to fill their own needs. And then maybe, just maybe, this is going to work out after all. You don't know. Any deal breakers?
Common goals.
Common goals.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, if you don't have common goals,
Yeah.
that's a deal breaker. You got to have something that you're working on together. Excellent. So everybody's going to have some. Any other?
Just having someone that just spends money without thought. You know?
So that's a deal breaker. So they're just spending money without thought. That you're like, that's it. I don't. And why does that bother you?
I guess it's financial security.
Financial security. Okay. So look at your deal breakers and find out, are these deal breakers coming from a place of love or a place of fear? Yes?
Good question. Yeah. Addictions.
Addictions.
And I'm just trying to think if it's fair. Is it fair or fair?
You know what? It's like right or wrong. I mean, everybody, you that's part of being authentic. You have to know what you're capable of. You know, if I was asked you to go out there and put 3 of these bells and carry them around, you go, that's not my thing. You know, so you have to be authentic about that. And that's one of the things we have to be very careful of. If we're in a relationship that, I hear this thrown around a bit, toxic, and we think we're going to save somebody or we're going to rescue them, be aware of why you're doing that. Be aware of your own actions. Why do you feel the need or not the need? So if you're sitting there comparing whether or not this is fair, then that needs a little bit more exploring in yourself to find out why is that an issue for you? Why do you feel like it's possibly not fair? And if you're looking for anybody outside of yourself to say, oh yeah, that's fair, that's, you know, nobody can say that for you but for you, you know, because they don't know your circumstances, they don't know the situation. That's part of where the love coaching that I do helps a person find that true, authentic self within them, so that when they do act, they act in alignment with their core values, with their truest self. And that's something that every one of us have to work with on a daily basis to find out about ourselves. That's the first relationship. So I know I've had several clients come to me because their significant other, they're not getting along with them. And we go through this process of we're working on the individual first. And so many times when that happens, suddenly they're able to see their significant other or partner or whoever in this situation in a different light. They're able to see themselves more clearly. So clarity is a huge key factor there. In the selection process during the dating, I'll often encourage my clients to make a list of all the things that you'd love to have in a relationship from a significant other. Also make a list of all the things you don't want. Of that list, so you start over here and start on the one that you do like. Be mindful that this person may have, say you had 10 things that they have to have. They may have all 10 of those, but they have that deal breaker. Oh, dang. What do we do now? They got all 10 of my must-have, but oh. So that's something you get to figure out. That's the one thing you've got to explore and say, well, it was a deal breaker. Is it still a deal breaker? And if you're being authentic with yourself, what was a deal breaker at 15, 16, 17, might not be a deal breaker at 50. 45. You know, you've made some things have changed. So at any given time in your relationship, you're having to constantly go back and reintroduce yourself. You know, reconnect with yourself on a regular basis. Have I changed? There could be things that happen to you during this festival that